Welcome to Prose and Cons, a podcast by writers for writers, brought to you by Precipice Fiction. Precipice Fiction would like to acknowledge the people of the Eora and Durag nations as the original custodians and storytellers of the land this podcast was created on.
How's it going, guys? This is Precipice Fiction, and today I thought we'd do a little bit of a discussion into some marketing stuff, specifically TikTok. I have been going kind of nuts on that recently, putting like a lot of time into it, probably too much. But it seems to be a really, really good, viable marketing strategy. But we'll get to that a little bit later. First thing I want to know is, Matan and Paddy, what have you guys been reading? What have you been consuming? What have you been writing? If you've been writing, yeah, what's been going on? Paddy?
Well, finally got an audiobook of Moby Dick, because I just came to terms with the fact that I'm never going to finish. Like, it's this big, man. Thank you, Matan. It's a great audiobook. I don't know the name of the read off the top of my head, but maybe I'll put it in the show notes. That means I might actually finish it. Yeah, other than that, still not writing anything, but I really want to get back to that soon. Alex and I went to Supernova on the weekend. All the writers, and especially Ali's amazing Metropes, thought made me really, really want to get back into writing, which I was always going to do, but I might push that forward a bit. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Well, that's awesome. What about you, Matan? What have you been doing?
I'm rereading, okay? Everybody does it. Everybody rereads. I like to reread. I like to read books I've already read.
Yeah, sure.
Many times. At the moment, I have just ordered a package that includes all three Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit with really nifty covers. And I'm looking forward to going through that again.
That's awesome.
So, it's not a tackle for me, it's a hug.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Silmarillion.
Really? I've never read it. I've never even attempted it.
Give me that lore. Give me that Wikipedia style writing. I love it. Yeah. Oh, you would love it. You would love it. It's great.
Yeah, right. I might try and make it through the original trilogy first.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's cool. That's awesome. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with rereading. I reread books, not all the time, but I do reread them, like especially the good ones. Every 10 years or something, I'll bust it out and be like, do this again.
I've literally never reread a book. Not in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. I don't read as fast as you guys anyway. So honestly, it's such it takes me a while to get through a book that just for the sake of actually reading a bunch of books, I'm going to pick up something new rather than read something I've already. Yeah, I don't know. I read slow. I don't know if I'm dyslexic.
So you do read it faster the second time.
I wouldn't know.
What you're saying, Paddy, is you might not be rereading Moby Dick?
Probably not. I don't think there's enough time in my lifespan to reread Moby Dick.
Yeah, just get through it once and you'll be done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what have I been doing? I've been really busy with stuff. I have ordered a cover for a collection of short stories that I'm putting together because they're just sitting there. A good friend of mine who's not actually in the writers group was like, "Hey, so you said you'd been putting stuff on Reddit. That's really cool, but maybe you should instead make a reader magnet where you can get people to come and sign into your mailing list." And I was like, well, screw it. Why not go the whole hog and just make it a small book and just sell it and see if I can do that. But if it's just horribly incomplete, I guess I could just bump it back down to reader magnet and see how it goes, and then refund everyone who felt ripped off.
You still got the cover image either way, right?
I do not want to give spoilers in case any of the listeners are going to get that. But does it have that story I really like about the guy that does the thing and goes to the other place and then
Wow, you went the opposite of not giving spoilers.
Yeah,
it's not spoiler. I said the guy that does the thing that goes to the other place.
Oh, I know.
It does not. That's not.
Oh, yeah. The one where he's driving. That one. Yeah.
No, not that one. Where he has to,
I might need a little more.
I don't want to give it away.
So anti-spoiler. There's no way of.
It is so good. It is so good, and it has that thing.
Premise
of do the thing.
Give me the premise of the first little
man. Okay, I hope I'm not ruining anything. He's got to go pee.
Oh yeah. You know what? I hadn't thought to put that in there, but I might. That's a really good idea. I really like that story, actually. Yeah,
I loved it. I felt personally attacked, but I loved it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that for a long time, but I do really enjoy that story, so I might. Anyway, it's a horror thing. So I've been doing that. I've been doing a whole bunch of TikTok. Me and Paddy obviously went to Supernova, which if there's any international listeners here, there actually is because Matan is international. We're literally doing this from across the world. It's kind of the Australian equivalent of Comic-Con. I think it actually is Comic-Con. They've just renamed it Supernova or subtitled it. But I have also been doing a lot of TikTok, and I did a little vlog on that. And I really wanted to discuss this. I've pretty much been proselytizing this to the whole group for the last, couple of weeks. But there's a really good reason for it, I think, and I want to sort of get into it. So before we do that, before I go into here's why before I go into my sales pitch, what do you guys know about TikTok? What experience do you have with it?
Well, as a teacher, I do get to see my students do it quite a lot.
Right.
I get a lot of requests from my students. Just do this TikTok with me, and I usually refuse.
Yeah, that sounds.
I don't understand.
What do you mean by do a TikTok with you? What is participatory TikTok?
They basically come to me on my break and say like, "Hey, come into the hallway. We want to do a TikTok." And
that's cool that they like you enough to do that.
Yeah, and they want me to do these dance moves, and the most I'm willing to do is hold the phone.
Yeah,
but,
that's fun.
But yeah, I guess it's like Instagram, just only videos, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it is sort of like that. You're not really wrong. It's kind of like the evolution of Vine, if you guys were familiar with that back in the day, which was a short form video thing. What about you, Paddy? Do you know much about it? Have you experimented?
Just that it's short form. It's like maximum 3 minutes. I haven't experimented with it. I had an account for about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the bandwagon now. I don't see any need to. It's got a bad rap, but my girlfriend actually uses it, and she watches some really interesting stuff.
Yeah,
we're talking about science and creative tasks.
It is a really, really interesting form of entertainment. But the reason why I bring it up is that it's an even more interesting from my personally. I'm not much of a just straight consumer. I'm fairly mercenary in the activities that I do. So if by mercenary I mean I'm not really interested unless it directly pertains to me and to my participation. That's just how my brain is wired.
Isn't that everybody?
Well, yeah, probably. But for example, I wouldn't do it if I couldn't be on it, if I couldn't make something about it. Anyway, the reason why it's cool is first I'll explain sort of the idea behind the marketing. The idea is essentially there's this thing called BookTok, which is like a subset of TikTok. I explained all this to Paddy yesterday at Comic-Con, so a lot of this will just be regurgitating.
I never heard it, so I'm happy to.
Totally. And no, the listeners haven't either, so hopefully. So yeah, there's this thing called BookTok, which is basically a sub-community. It's like a subreddit essentially, but it's huge. It's I think there's something like 49... I think it is actually there is the whole BookTok thing and related. There's 49 billion times it has been hashtagged. 49 billion. It is huge. Okay, now look, a lot of these are repeat posts and the same users and stuff. So I'm not suggesting there's that, but yeah, it is really, really popular. And the idea is with this community, and I've been sort of playing around with it. It's very open to people coming into it, and it's also very open to learning about new stuff and reading books that they haven't done. The whole thing is hey, we do TikTok, a whole thing is what's your TBR? What haven't you read? Oh, I want to buy all these books, but I haven't read. There's a bunch of to be read and things on it like that.
To be read. Okay.
To be read, exactly. To be read. So the reason why it's really functional for authors, to my knowledge, is that it's really easy to put your book in front of someone in a very specific format and then have them go, this looks really cool, I'm going to buy that immediately. When it comes to authors, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the marketing side of it, but a lot of marketing is really cold. There is not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of people, who know about your stuff and want to buy your stuff actively. You got your list and stuff, and that's great. But if you put an ad on Facebook, someone will see it, it'll come down, and it'll be you'll have the tropes of sci-fi, horror, romance, fantasy, whatever you want to do. And they'll see it. They'll go, I like these tropes. I'm going to buy this book, or I might at least bookmark this. Or a much greater percentage will go I don't care. Because it doesn't hit the exact thing. Now with BookTok, people follow you. People sort of learn about what you're doing. Or maybe they don't even. They just know that you're within the community of it because you're displaying the tropes of how you present yourself in it, and I'll talk about what these are later. and they go, this is cool. I want to buy this book. And then a bunch of other people will go like, hey, I read this book. It's really cool. Assuming it's good. You always have to assume the material is good. And yeah, that's how it goes. Does that all make sense?
It's about building a following, and then you can push stuff directly to your following rather than having to target ads and junk like that, right?
Well, yeah, but it actually goes a little bit beyond that in that, well, I'll get into the second sort of thing about what I'm going to talk about now. So that's just the general vibe of it. Why I'm focusing on TikTok more than sort of other ad platforms or social media platforms or stuff like that. And, you know, I'm certainly
what's wrong with MySpace?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't leave it behind.
They don't have a place. But do you guys know anything about how, like, the life cycle of a social media, like how it sort of goes?
You see, I did spend 3 years of my life studying marketing, but I have a feeling that my answer is different. So I really want to hear what is the cycle. It's kind of interesting because most social media cycles are still happening in front of our eyes. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Very few of the big ones have truly finished their cycle. Facebook is the best example.
Totally. That's
true.
So my understanding of it, and it could be flawed, but my understanding of it from what I should say, just to put my credentials up, I did just take a course on this called TikTok Sells Books. It was like a 10-day boot camp thing where they're like, this is TikTok, this is why you should do it, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of this I'm just sort of regurgitating, but I think it is important to say. So the way that social media platforms usually tend to work is that they will start, they will not have a lot of following. So they'll be really niche. They'll get this niche core following. You guys have seen The Social Network. It's like, you know, you had to be invited into it. It was all very cool. Then it expands. And in that phase, what happens is the social media tries to get itself out to as many people as humanly. It tries to expand as rapidly as it can. So it almost saturates the market and is able to sort of get as many new followers as it can. Now, after that point, and this is the point that Instagram and Facebook are in, this is the next part, not the bit I've just described. It gets to a point where they're like, okay, we've grabbed our market share. We know what we're doing here. Let's monetize this. So let's create an ad platform. And then that way, turn off the tap. They start like siphoning it down so that they're not organically pushing out the content in the way that they were in their growth phase, right? So for things like Facebook and stuff, when you put something out on Facebook, a lot of that material gets seen by very, very few people. Like you'd assume it was like, oh, all my friends are going to see this. That's not often the case. Your friends might see it over an extended period of time, over like a couple of weeks or something, but it is really throttled back what you can see. And don't even imagine about reaching new users. That's just like done. It's unless you're on groups and things, which are a whole different sort of thing. Facebook, for example, and Instagram is getting to this point. There's just no what we call organic reach, right? Now, TikTok is in the stage before that, where there is actually an organic reach, the bit I was telling you about, where they're expanding as massively as they can. So what that means is that if you build a head of steam, if you build a momentum on this platform, and remember, it's still in the early stages of this, you can essentially get your stuff out to new people very, very rapidly. So yeah, basically it's in the organic reach stage where they're like, hey, look, we want to put your stuff out to as many people as we can in as short a time as possible, because we're still growing and, you know, we're going to help people who are growing with it. So that's why I'm sort of focusing on TikTok as opposed to some of these other more mature social medias, because they are in a later stage of their life cycle. And obviously none of them are dead yet, with the possible exception of MySpace and maybe Tumblr. But
is Tumblr dead?
It's not dead, but it's like, okay, it's on the way out, because they basically, apparently they banned porn, and a lot of like Tumblr's viewership was from that, and essentially like people were just like, well, I'm not going to come here if I can't see naked furries.
Let this be a lesson to all social media platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Never explicitly ban pornographic materials if you've let people have them in the first place.
So I'm just wondering, Alex, so what would you tell the viewers that would tell you the usual digs against advertising on the young platforms? And I heard that when I was going through the Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat phase. It's like, yeah, you know, a lot of these kids are on Instagram, but you know who's got the credit card? People who are on Facebook. So here's my counter to you, and I'm wondering what you'll say to that.
That's a really good question. That is a very good question. Because there is a bit of an assumption that TikTok is actually a very young audience. I mean, most people assume that TikTok's about 18 to 25. I can tell you from experience, certainly authors, readers as well, but definitely authors. A lot of these people are in their like late 30s to mid 50s. There's a lot of people putting stuff out there, and now I'm in a little bit of an author bubble there, which I will talk about later. But yeah, essentially the demographic of TikTok, especially in the last year, the last 2 years, has massively expanded out to other people. So yes, you do get those younger viewers, but there's also a lot of older viewers. But here's the fun thing: the younger viewers have money and are willing to buy books as well, probably more books than the older viewers.
Yeah, don't teens have like the most? I don't know about teens,
disposable
but
income,
have the most disposable
most buying power.
Yeah, they got the credit card. And the thing is, if you're selling like lower priced books, which most of us will start off doing, they're only like $5 anyway, or less, like 99 cents sometimes. So money is almost not and people are willing to throw, from what I understand from this course, people are willing to throw a lot more money at this, to be able to access it. So as an author, and look, I know this all sounds very mercenary, in terms of just accessing the materials, but that's what we're here for. We're here to sell books. At the end
marketing is mercenary, right?
Yeah, totally. But also from a personal perspective, feel free to jump in here, guys, if you want, because I'm motor mouthing a little bit. Okay. Also, the community of BookTok specifically, I'm not really familiar with the rest of it because it is subdivided into all these different planets of TikTok. You got Pet Talk and Surf Talk and everything, a million different things. But BookTok specifically is a really, really nice community. Like, I don't think I've ever had someone in the time that I've been there, which has been a couple of weeks now, say anything even slightly negative.
So I'll hit you with another one. Let's have a theoretical situation. Let's say my friend Paddy is a writer, and Paddy wants to start a social media thing. He's a bit overwhelmed. He doesn't know where to start. He does like to write. Specifically, he likes to write thrillers or maybe science fiction. And he's hearing everything you said. It's like, man, that Alex is saying really good stuff, but how do I start? Like, how do I even begin? I'm not an interesting person. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So he's thinking, what about video number 1? What should I do with my first video? Should I just get a camera and talk and say, hey, my name is Paddy and I'm writing a book? What should Paddy do?
Well, thank you. That is you've actually led right into my next little part there, Matan. So, it is a little overwhelming the first time you do it. And look, I got this course. I paid a little bit for it, and it was like a boot camp. And it was like, hey, we're going to take you through how to do these videos, every day. And basically, the first thing you need to do, and I was saying this to Paddy a little bit yesterday, is the first thing you need to do is familiarize yourself with the culture of BookTok. You need to kind of watch enough TikToks to understand what goes, because if you put up what they call a book trailer, which is just like, a video of what your book is, and it's like a princess, a castle, an evil dragon, Dragantopia, something like that. That's not going to go on BookTok because it's not the idiom, it's not the language, So I'd say the first thing before even thinking about putting up a video would be just to spend literally a couple of days where you're just scrolling on BookTok, and that's another thing. Okay, that's the first thing I'll get into. So the first thing you want to do is, and by the way, big shout out to Lila Dubois and Jane Ryland for this. They've got an amazing course called TikTok Sells Books, which I mentioned before. If you have any interest in this, rather than just listening to me ramble on, please go and just get that course, because is infinitely better at explaining how this stuff works.
Please do both. We still want
alternatively listen to my tiny summary. But yeah, the first thing would be just familiarize yourself with the content and go through it like that. Once you have an understanding of how it works, there's a couple of different ways to do it. If you are the sort of person who's comfortable on camera, I am a little more comfortable on camera because I've taught for a long time and taught Zoom. I know Paddy has a little bit more comfort on camera. I'm not sure how you feel about it, Matan. Let's go for that angle first.
Matan teaches. You'll be fine. You'll be fine, right?
Have you seen any of my movies?
What?
No, because
okay.
Yeah. This joke doesn't work.
I see. No, I thought you were going in a very different direction there, and I was like,
no.
I was about to ask you.
There
about
was a
your
punchline waiting, but no one opened the doors, and I just standing there, and it's awkward. And
Matan gone wild. I don't know. I was just my mind's going
okay.
places. So, look, if you were the sort of person who's comfortable on camera, and probably you would want to learn to get at least some level of it, because TikTok loves a face. It really loves to see someone talking about something they're passionate about. The first thing you would want to do is just take a sound that you've seen you've as you've been scrolling through them, favorite the ones that you think are really funny or really interesting or really whatever. And the first thing you could do is you could lip sync to one of those sounds, because basically TikTok got its start as like a music lip syncing platform, but now it's more about, let's say you take a sound bite from like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they're talking about like, I don't know, like, oh, we're gonna do this bank heist. It's gonna be great. And it's like, well, what do we do to do the bank heist? And here's where it gets a little bit confusing if you're not with the haven't looked into the culture of it. What happens is, let's say they're talking about a bank heist. Okay, so you lip sync to that. You say, we're gonna do this bank heist. Well, how? And then you do another cut, and someone comes over here and goes, well, I go over here and go, well, how are we gonna do this bank heist? Well, we have to get a car. Well, where are we going to get the car? And it goes back and forth like that. Now, what you do is you put text over the top of that, where instead of talking about a bank heist, you're saying, where am I going to get my new books from? Right? Like, so instead you're mimicking like, we're going to do this bank heist. Where are we going to get the car? But the text above it says, where am I going to get my books from? Well, you go to the bookstore, but I don't have any money. And it goes back and forth like that. And that multi-layered messaging, I know it sounds really convoluted as I'm explaining it here, but if you kind of watch it, you'll sort of understand how it works. That is one way to do it, where you're just lip syncing and just putting your own message over the top. So that's one thing.
This feels just like psychological, magical hypnosis marketing, like a next level kind of thing. So I'm going to show you a scene you like, but meanwhile, I'm going to tell you to buy my book. And apparently it works.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. I mean, it's more like, I don't know, it's one of those things that you kind of have to see it to understand it. And to be honest, the first time you see it, you'll be like, what the fuck was that? I don't understand it. And that's how
I'm just worried that during the research phase, I'll find myself buying a bunch of shit,
Well, it probably wouldn't work out like that, but okay. But let's say you're not into that. Let's say that's not your thing. You could also do a thing that's like, you show a picture of yourself, or just a thing on screen that says like, my favorite books of May. Okay. And then all you have to do is take a photo of your hand, putting down a book. And it's like book number one. I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I've been reading that. Great book, by the way, if you get a chance. And then, I don't know, The Twisted Ones, read that, which is also a great book. Thank you, Matan, for lending me that. Really good rec. And you just do that, and you can just do book recommendations for this month, books I've read or books I need to read, something like that. So where you don't have to use your voice, you don't have to appear on camera more than a hand. You could even do it just totally with a photo or something. But those are
uncomfortable with your hand. If you're uncomfortable with your hand, you can use a glove. You don't have to show it.
You can have a pair of kitchen tongs that you
totally. You could poke
up and rotate around.
I mean, you could make something funny about that. Like, you could just say, like, I'm afraid to appear on camera. So, and that could be like your gimmick,
It seems like, from what I've seen, like, there's very, very specific kind of things that TikTok likes. I mean, like YouTube, it seems, has some kind of formatty stuff where there are certain types of YouTubers and certain types of videos, but it seems TikTok is, or at least the way you're describing BookTok, is that, but more so. There are very specific formats for how you want to make your content. There's some very specific do's and don'ts. Is that kind of...
Yes,
right?
But the reason for that, from my understanding, is that TikTok has this very quick turnover. Okay, because the videos are so short and you can make them so easily, these like the wheat separates from the chaff very quickly. So things that affect people, and that's things that people click on, things that they find entertaining, very quickly become apparent. right? And things that aren't as effective, they sort of just disappear quickly. So, and these things change. Like right now, there's a thing called page flips where you hold it up and just go, and you can see the pages flipping and you put the text over the top there. But yeah, because the life cycle is so quick, it very quickly separates what works from what doesn't work, if that makes sense.
So if we quickly summarize what we have so far, step one, basically kind of educate yourself, get comfortable with
exactly
what it is, watch, just research. 100. And after that, step two is not, don't necessarily in step two start chugging down your book, down people's TikTok feed, but just start to participate, start to be part of it. Not necessarily plugging yourself quite yet, doing the material you're writing, but just like be part of the thing. Yeah, favorite books, be part of the joke.
That's basically it, and that's how to prime the pump, how to get sort of used to it, so you're there. But having said that, you actually can go in straight away. One thing I should say is that this is one thing I messed up the first time I tried to do it, because I did try and go in and do BookTok by myself before having done this course. Make sure for the first while you're doing it, you are only looking up BookTok content. Only look up that. Type in BookTok. Follow all the things there. Train the algorithm. You have to do that for about 2 days. Super, super important. If you don't do that, you'll get a whole diaspora of different media, and some of you are like, this is fine, this is not fine. But if you take a solid 2 days of browsing and just go, I'm only going to look up things related to BookTok. BookTok, Book Nerd, Bookworm, anything with book in the title. But just
is that just so that in the research phase, you only see BookTok content? So you can get a sense for,
it's partially because of that, but also it trains the algorithm where your content wants to go. So it's a twofold thing. It's like, well, I'm only going to see the stuff that's going to teach me, but also I'm teaching BookTok to where to put it, which is, it makes perfect sense, but you just wouldn't think of it, you know? So I think that was probably one of the biggest things that made me this time go, oh, okay. And that helps you find your community and all that sort of stuff.
So if you like deviated into, I don't know, what's another topic?
Sports.
Sports. Yeah, I was going to say pictures of root vegetables, but sports is probably more relatable. Then it might also push the content you make to sports as well.
Now, yes. If you write about sports, there might be some crossover there, right? There might not. A lot of people who are into sports don't read. I'm a lot of
shots fired, man.
Hey. Whoa.
What? Yeah. Well, hey now.
Mm-hmm.
No.
He's talking about you, Matan.
Yeah. What are you?
I got. Okay. Hold on. This is legit. Hold on for a second. Okay. Please pause this thing. Stay here.
Okay.
So what do we do while he's away?
I think we just stare blankly into the camera, into the void.
Make uncomfortable eye contact with.
I know this is a podcast, but I really want this to be like in video form, at least this part.
Okay.
This is called the Book of Basketball. All right. This is just sports. Okay. Sports people wrote this for sports people. And it is a book, and we do read, and we humans, and we, because I like to see a bunch of guys sweating and screaming at each other and running after a ball, doesn't mean that.
In fairness, I just finished A Farewell to Sports by Paul Gallo, which is definitely the best book on sports I've ever read. Might also be the only book on sports I've ever read, but it was very, very good. I did like it as well. So I'm not saying that's not true, but there may be a portion of that audience that doesn't jive with it. And that's actually okay, because the people who do like it and who do enjoy it and are like, oh, I would like to read that, may go into that. You would probably want to preface it with, okay, so I'm a good example of this. So I write a lot of horror. That's my sort of main thing that I'm doing right now. So instead of, and this goes into another little tick, at the end of the video, you want to put hashtags. You guys know what hashtags are. People have been using hashtags since 2005, right? But they are really important for TikTok. So you want to put the hashtags in. You want to angle them in a way that, so let's take Addy's sports example there. Let's say he's really into basketball. He might want to put basketball books on it there, or he may want to go basketball history, for example. Just little tie-ins that will suggest, will funnel a certain style of people who are more book inclined.
And that's if he's making videos specifically about basketball books, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. If he's writing, let's say he's writing a novel about a basketballer who, I don't know, who's like really good and then breaks his ankle and then has to sort of reconsider his whole career, his whole life, right?
Why are you laughing, Matan?
I'm just laughing because this is going in directions I've been hoping my whole life that this book will get there. You know, like I've been waiting for this moment. Like, yeah, let's talk about this. Go on.
Yeah, you're just waiting to like jump in.
I'm sorry for the distraction, but your advice sounds super important and super useful. Is that the algorithm studies you as much as you studies the algorithm.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't cool, it would be creepy. You know.
You look into the void, and the void looks back, Matan.
Oh my God! I haven't even fixed my hair.
Oh, void! I didn't know you were going to be.
Hold on, void.
I know that on YouTube, and I've done a little bit of YouTube stuff like that. I'm sure I'm not sure, but I'd say it's the same with TikTok. Yep. There's also ways. There's like paid and free apps. There's websites that can show you the top rated hashtags for certain categories. So let's say I type in Dungeons and Dragons. It'll show me like what why are you smiling, Matan? Stop it. It'll show you the top like hashtags around that, the related search terms and stuff.
Yeah.
So totally. You can build a video that targets like the most popular tags.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of those tools, not for a while, but I was using them on Instagram for a while, and there is 100% that. But what you can even do is just type it in on TikTok and go like, let's say basketball books.
And just see what the search terms.
And it'll actually tell you how many times that's been searched. And
really? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. TikTok is one of the more statistically friendly apps I've ever seen. It's like, yeah, we want you to know what you want to do, and we want to help you go towards that. They are really interested in helping you optimize your videos, which is great.
What are you saying? That's like the friendly phase of a social media app. There's a friendly phase, and then comes a phase where they're just monetizing.
I mean, you have to remember that this is an app that is designed to keep you on the screen, and it is scarily good at that. I'm like so much to the point that I'm set certain times where I'm going to check it now, because otherwise you lose hours. You will absolutely lose hours. So you do have to be wary of that. It's just, it just takes a little bit of forethought and a little bit of, I'm not going to say self-control, but certainly preparation. But yeah, it is something that wants to keep you there for as long as it can, which is kind of a horror novel in and of itself, I think. I was going to say though, there is another function to it which is really cool that I've started looking into recently. And if you guys want to have a look at this, you know, let me know. But there's this function called Live. YouTube has Live as well, and I think Instagram has Live too. But TikTok does it in this very specific way that's really cool. What it does is it sets these benchmarks in place that you have to hit. So you can't go live on TikTok until you have 1,000 followers. Now, why that's cool is because that limits the live capacity. And they push this really hard. They really push people towards going live. But it makes this threshold, this benchmark of like, well, the only people who are going to go live are going to be the people who are really serious about this platform, or at least marginally serious, or have been for a while. So there's a really good, and getting 1,000 people to follow you isn't that hard. I did it in about 2 weeks. So once you get to that point, you are basically live, you're on the computer, you're just doing whatever you do. And to my understanding, TikTok doesn't really care what you do. As long as you're somewhat interacting, you can be just sitting at home making food, or, just answering questions and things. And this gives a real huge boost to your stuff. Basically it'll send people towards your profile and all that sort of stuff. So I've been experimenting that with recently. I've been doing it pretty much every night for the last couple of nights, and it's slow, but it is definitely getting some traction.
Wait. You've been going live every night for the last few nights?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
What have you been doing? Why aren't we watching you, Paddy? This is serious, Like, what are you doing when you're live? I want to jump in, Like, what's happening?
That's what I was saying.
But tell me first. What am I walking into? I don't want to be surprised.
I don't want to
think.
See.
Yeah, maybe it's private. Maybe it's something I shouldn't see.
Yeah, maybe the public live stream I'm doing is a little private. No, anyway, whatever. But okay, so what I do is I get a little, like, you can't really see it from here, but there's like a little, like, see this thing roughly there? There's like a little light that reflects on the wall and makes it like starry, which is kind of cool. I turn off all the lights except this one here.
This is great. Okay, go on.
It's super fun. I do that, so it looks very like e-gamer sort of thing, and then I sit there and I literally play Castlevania X and just talk to people. And like, that's literally all I do. I did try reading out, but it didn't have quite the same effect. I'm sort of experimenting with a few different things. But you know how I was telling you I would always listen to audiobooks and play video games? This is just that, except I'm talking to people instead of doing that. So I'm building.
This has been my dream ever since I was 12 to just. And I think a lot of people can relate to this in this time and age. My dream is to just sit down on my ass, play a video game, be interrupted, and do this. I'm working. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of something. No. I finish in 2 hours. Yes.
This is important.
That's my dream.
Yeah.
It could cost me my marriage, but that's my dream. So
the funny thing is you do actually get paid for it. Not a lot. You don't get paid a lot. But since I've done it, I've made like, I don't know, like it's nothing. It's like $2. But it is something. And apparently if you keep going, that number increases. I've heard some people of when they get really good at it making between $100 and $200 an hour just for doing what they're doing.
So
I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so the live content you're doing, it doesn't sound like it has anything to do with reading. Is that a problem? Like the fact that the live content isn't related to books?
Well, the live content, and I'm still experimenting this. What I'm doing is I say up the top of my live, hey, horror author, I'm playing video games here. Come say hi. Come chat to me. So a lot of the time, the conversation, and you can actually get other people in as well. So you're actually talking to them one-on-one. So a lot of the time, the conversation will kind of wind back around to, hey, what have you been reading? What are you writing right now? What's going on? So you can kind of steer the conversation into that. And really what you're doing in live is just building connections, building relationships with people and going like, people just rock up and go, oh, hey, it's like, there's a guy who comes into my live, semi-regularly and goes, I'm like, oh, hey, Kat, what have you been doing? What's going on? And that's just part of a relationship that's being built. Yeah, and then I know her from BookTok as well, and we sort of message back and forth. So it's this sort of it's feeding into this whole sort of cycle. And then theoretically, because I've put hashtags that suggest TikTok, hey, maybe send these people from BookTok because I'm putting those tags in there, or at least horror BookTok, whatever. When I put out a book, these people won't be like, oh, it's that guy I follow. He put out a book. I'll read that book. Sure. And that's sort of the idea of it. A lot of them probably won't, and that's fine. Or maybe they will later, So that is kind of what I've been experimenting with recently. And it seems to be pretty effective. I'm having a good, a lot of fun with it. So that's always good.
So I'm guessing that maybe you already covered this, or maybe you didn't, but because TikTok is new and it's picking up and it's getting a lot of organic growth, that like the amount of attention you'll get for like every hour that you spend working at this thing is bigger than other platforms. Like if I were to spend 10 hours on, say, YouTube, I keep coming back to that, and 10 hours on TikTok, presumably the 10 hours on TikTok is more worth it? Or is it just another thing to add? Because it sounds like this is quite involved.
I just want to jump in if that's okay. YouTube to me has always existed outside of the normal, the normal system of social medias because it is so different. TikTok does feel more in the vein of Instagram, Snapchat. It feels like the evolution of those
quick
apps.
And disposable kind of just information coming.
Exactly. I feel like YouTube will outlive these apps because it does kind of exist in a parallel universe it does something different enough in that it focuses on content creating for long form content, something that none of these apps can do yet. None of these apps will let you search to the degree that YouTube allows it, like to find a specific video. On YouTube, you will find a specific video right where you left it. If you want to watch that same video essay, you can go and find it pretty easily. Whereas TikTok and Instagram, TikTok, to my understanding, they don't necessarily want you to go back to that video from 2 years ago. They want you to see the video that was made recently. So I'm just saying, I think you should compare the hours you put into TikTok to the hours you maybe would have put into Facebook or Instagram. And YouTube should maybe happen simultaneously in a different
different sort of column of work input.
Because YouTube is sticking around, I believe.
I would agree with that, and I don't even think that Instagram and Facebook are redundant at this point. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying specifically in terms of organic reach, and ultimately, what I always have to keep reminding myself is that this is not for the sake of itself. You have to look at the end you're trying to reach. And the end is to be able to sell books, if not now, then at some point. Now, if I was a published author, and I have been talking to a couple of published authors, self-published mostly, they say that they have had like a bit of success pretty much from the get selling stuff on TikTok. So it comes back to the fact of like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to build? If your content does function more as long form, like for example, okay, this is a good point that my dad asked me yesterday. He's like, no, it wasn't my dad, it was you, Paddy. Weird. That's super weird. Anyway, Paddy's my dad.
I'm pretty old.
But yeah, TikTok is this, it is, you want to focus on being able to drive people to that thing. You know, what was I saying? You said yesterday, what did you say? You were like, so would you put an audiobook up on TikTok? And like, hard no, you definitely would not put an audiobook up on TikTok because it's not the sort of content that it promotes. Would you put an audiobook up on YouTube? Absolutely. I think that would be a really, really good idea because it lends itself to that long form content. I guess what I'm saying is when you asked there, Paddy, is it maybe worth putting the time into TikTok rather than say YouTube or Facebook or Instagram? Because the arbitrage is higher, and by arbitrage I mean the output received versus the input put in is more. The output is more. I would say yes for Facebook and Instagram in terms of organic reach. I'd say YouTube, probably like Matan said, is its own thing, and you want to work out where that fits into your strategy. Right now, I'm not making any YouTube videos, but that could change in the future.
This video can be on YouTube. This very moment.
It will. I mean, it will be on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to put this on YouTube, right?
Maybe it already is on YouTube. Maybe you're watching on YouTube right now as we're talking.
That's meta. Yeah. Well, not as we're talking, but as you're watching, certainly. But we could certainly, and I have experimented with this. Take the little snippets and put them up on TikTok, and I don't know how that will do because it is short form content, but I don't know how that medium will apply. So that little thing that Ali made yesterday, I've put that up on TikTok and I'm going to see how that does. But
it just needs to be punchy, right? Like grab people's attention in the short amount of time that TikTok offers.
7 to 15 minutes, 7 to 15 seconds is a pretty good, solid thing. Any more than that, unless it's like really engaging, is a little bit harder to hold attention. Last thing I was going to say is that something I've been doing recently on TikTok is doing these little skits, and I recommend you guys have a look at them if you can, just if you're interested. Well, I've shown you some of them before, Matan, but this is like, it's like there's an ongoing horror comedy sort of thing. It's like a meta horror thing, and there's a jock, there's a nerd, there's like a ditzy girl, and they're all in this haunted castle, and they're like, what's going on? And the first one, I just base it on tropes. The first one's like, something's going on here. What's happening? Oh, Latrell's body's just turned up, like disemboweled and hanging from like the crenellations. And then they like sort of talk about that. Yeah.
All the characters are you?
Oh yeah, totally. I'd like.
Okay. It's just sorry. I was just okay. Go.
Like it's just so.
I love it.
But yeah, I've been experimenting with that. That hasn't, because it's a bit longer, that hasn't actually been doing as well. But the people who like it seem to really like it. So I'm just experimenting with that, doing maybe like 8 parts of that series, but it's a lot of fun to make. So there's a lot of ability to do stuff on it. There's a lot of variation, a lot of variety. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Obviously, you've done this like big course and like giving us and the audience distilled that knowledge, and that is cool. I'm not inclined to just pick up TikTok on its own. No, I'm not. Like, I'm not cool at all. But
I'll be the judge of that.
Very sweet. I'm sure like a lot of people.
You're cool AF.
Position, thank you. If you want to like actually promote your writing, this is like an incentive to actually get into TikTok for like a dedicated purpose, not because you need another time suck in your life, but because, hey, this is actually a really useful tool and this is how to use it.
And it's a small window of opportunity is the point. Like TikTok will not, there's some suggestion online that this is maybe the last gasp of organic reach that it will get. So it's like, now is the time to get into it if you want to get into it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what my understanding is. Because TikTok is at a point now where it's big enough that it almost doesn't really need to do that anymore. So this last sort of wave of getting organic reach and pushing that out and developing a followership, it's a really high arbitrage time to do it. It's a very effective time to do it, I think.
I'll just say I honestly felt in the past a bit of disdain towards TikTok, probably because of the old man syndrome, like, oh, these new apps and all that stuff. And it's been an arc for me. You know, I got behind Facebook. I got my first account when I was 14. And then when Instagram came along, I was, less excited, probably didn't really post on it. And then Snapchat, we don't talk about Snapchat.
Yeah.
And then, and then now TikTok came along and I'm just like, another one.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've learned so much. And if there's anything I personally take away from this is leave your biases at home. Okay. Yeah. If you're trying to make this writing thing succeed, you need whatever tools you can find. And this sounds like an excellent tool. And whatever thought you have about a certain tool or the people who use it, hey, it looks like it works. Alex, you've educated me. I had no idea that people that age use TikTok. I expected you to say like 12 to 18, and apparently very far from the truth. Immensely useful. Thank you.
And also marketing, like we're treating this like a business, right? Like, yes, we're artists and we're creative, but if we don't treat like this a business, then we're just writing for a tiny audience. Like, we should be looking at this in a more, what objective, will it work, won't it work, than like, what do I like? What kind of like social media platforms am I going to enjoy using? Because it's work. We're doing this so we don't have to like have a 9 to 5. So this is like a pretty good sacrifice.
Totally. And I have to say, after having done it, and you do need to put in a bit of time to get to this point, like just to be enculturated in it and like saturated in the idea of what it is. I find it so much fun to make those videos. Like you do get to a point where you're just getting that little dopamine hit of like, I try not to get that too much from checking it because that becomes a vicious cycle, but at least making the stuff and putting it out and then going like, okay, how's this going to go? And then, like having a look in like 6 hours or so and going, okay, well, that was going good. It pushed it out. Oh, okay. Well, a lot of people liked it, but TikTok actually didn't push it very fast. And what does that mean? And there's just this whole mental sort of thing you can do, like, and just figure out how to iterate it properly and how to make it as most effective as you can. Cool. Well, I think that's probably it for now. Tell you what, why don't we find a quote?
Good marketing makes the company look smart, but great marketing makes the customer look smart. Like, you're smart for purchasing our product. We're just, like, we're not the smart ones. You're the smart one. You got the sale. You got the discount.
Deal.
You got the Vacuum 3000 with the Bluetooth headphones feature.
Yeah. Well, it's like you feel satisfied when you buy something that you're like, this is good. I like this. Cool. All right. Well, good to see you guys as usual. Thanks for coming along, and I guess we'll see everyone next week. Should be good. Oh, by the way, just before I go, I am going on TikTok live around like 11 o'clock Sydney time. So I don't know like what that. I guess that's EST.
We can put it in the show notes, right?
Basically 9 hours from now, give or take, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, I'm going to be at work, but maybe if my students, are interested, maybe we can. It is in English, so it's kind of.
That's true.
Related.
Well, if they like,
just don't say anything that would get me fired. All right.
No. There's like you can't swear in or anything. So no, I'm very, very good about that. But yeah, if they just want to see, a white dude in English playing video games and talking shit, maybe about horror, it might work.
Hey, PewDiePie made a career out of it.
He really did. He's certainly said some controversial things. Anyway, cool. All right, guys, sounds good. We'll see you all later.
You're listening to Prose and Cons, the Precipice Fiction podcast.